But I wanted to give a couple pointers, and mostly to the parents. And I can talk to the youngsters, inshallah, towards the end. But in this lecture alone, references to Luqman Hakim radiallahu an, someone who is a lighthouse. He's a bastion of guidance for us in the Quran about parenting and the relationship between parent and child. References to Luqman have been made numerous times. And whenever someone references Luqman, it's always in the construct of trying to tell children, look, listen, this is what Allah is telling us through the Quran about how you have to be with us. I just did a family night session in my community in Dallas, Texas, about actually this chapter, this passage from Surah Luqman, where he's advising his son. And you should have seen, miraculously, all of these parents with their teenagers magically showed up, the ones who never show up. And they made all their teenagers sit front row. And every time I mentioned something about respecting parents, they would look at their child and just nod their head slowly. Right? And kind of, yes, exactly. But what's interesting, and I'm going to be very honest with you, is that as I was researching the topic, as I was reading the different tafasir and different explanations and different understandings, there is something that we skip. There is something that we gloss over. We quickly mention it, and then we go to all of what we consider to be the good stuff, the meat and potatoes. And that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions two very interesting characteristics, not about how Luqman's son should be with his parents, but he mentions two characteristics about how Luqman approached his son. So he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us two phrases. The first is he says, and remember when Luqman said to his son, وَهُوَ يُعِذُهُ, and he was, and the translation is kind of bad, but it's, and he was admonishing him, he was reminding him, he was preaching to him. If you look up the word wa'adha in the Arabic language, it has the meaning not of preaching, but of being so concerned out of love for somebody's goodness and their safety and their well-being that your love sort of spills over out of your heart and into your tongue. Like your love is so, you can't contain it, that your love is so strong that you just have to say something. Notice here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us that Luqman went to his son and he was angry at him, he was disappointed in him, he was trying to rectify him. No, he says that he went to him, and he went to him in this state of such love that his love was unable to be contained, and then he spoke to his son, and these words were filled with love, so much so that instead of saying ya ibni, which as growing up as an Egyptian, ya ibni means you're in trouble, right? You get habibi and you get ibni. Ibni means you're gonna get in trouble. Habibi means inshallah you're gonna get some halal Rice Krispie treats, right? Or something nice, okay? And instead of saying ya ibni, which is the literal translation for my son, he says ya bunayya. Ya bunayya. Ya bunayya in the Arabic language, it also means my son. But why choose ya bunayya over ya ibni? Because ya bunayya has the meaning of love and adoration built into it. So before we talk about all of the advices that Luqman gave to his son, radiallahu an, before we tell our children, look, read this chapter, tell me what you've learned, we need to ask ourselves as parents, and I can say that now, alhamdulillah, how many of us, when we approach our children to remind them, we do it, number one, in the same way that Luqman did, where his heart was filled with love, and number two, where that love was so strong that our words became super soft and easily receivable. Ask yourself honestly, the last time that you critiqued your child, that you tried to change their behavior, that you tried to remind them of something that was good for them. And I'm not doubting that you want good for them. Every parent wants good for their children, and this is something that children need to understand. That your parents are not trying to make your life horrible. One time I said that in the halaqah. I said teens, I was talking to my teenagers. I said, your parents don't hate you. And one girl goes, really? I said, yes, your parents don't hate you. She goes, prove it. I said, well, you're here right now. You know how difficult it is to get you from here to here? You know how many diapers there are from here to here? I said, your parents love you. But the fact that she had to challenge that notion shows me something. That sometimes the love that we have gets lost on the way from our heart to our tongue, and it ends up coming out instead of roses like daggers. And the words that we use, they stick, and they make young people feel irrelevant. They make them feel not worthy. They make them feel not sufficient, not good enough. I once had a young child who said to me, subhanAllah, if I ever get like a 98 or a 99%, all of my other friends, their parents hug them and compliment them. My dad says, where did the other 1% go? And you're laughing now, but how many of you are like, yes, where did it go, right? You're asking, like you're sympathizing with the dad. The reality is that these words, we think that they're small and we move on. We quickly forget them because the tomato ghosh is cooking. We have to go make sure it's done right. But the kids remember this, not for minutes, not for days or weeks or months, but for years. And it changes them for their eternity, for their lifetime, and the cycle repeats itself. So we're going to talk about how to raise amazing young Muslim children. We have to understand something, that the plant is only as healthy as the soil that it came from. That if you look at your child, and this is Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, he's so powerful when he talks about communal change or family change or any kind of change. He always says, go and look at the mirror. Go and look at yourself. You see your child being a certain way, ask yourself, what am I doing and how can I change this in myself? The topic that was given to me, the subtopic, was addressing our children whenever they say the phrase, I'm bored. Any parents in here, your children have ever said that to you, I'm bored? Anybody? Raise your hand if your children have ever been bored. Wow, mashallah, you are boring people. No, I'm joking. So I wanted to speak a little bit more broadly because I think that this is, saying I'm bored is more of a symptom. It's not the disease, right? It's like if you went to the doctor and you're like, the doctor says to you, hey, you have the flu. You're like, yeah, just take care of this runny nose. And the doctor says, no, we have to take care of the disease, not the symptom. And you're like, no, just the runny nose, I'll be fine, thank you. That's not how we work. If your children ever feel bored or they ever feel, let's say, disconnected, we have to first understand something very, very important. And that is, mashallah, may Allah reward her, Dr. Susie Ismail, who is a pioneer, mashallah, for women's education and women's empowerment in the community for as long as I can remember coming to these conferences. She mentioned something very, very beautiful, and that is that every generation is going to have that tension with the older generation. Every single generation. I'll be honest with you, when I was younger, I used to have that tension, and I always said to myself, I said, Abdurrahman, you're never going to have this sort of disconnect with your children or with youth. You're always going to be up to date. You're always going to know everything. And then Snapchat came out, and I was like, what is happening? Or I go to my halaqat, and the kids are telling me about Lil Yachty and Drake's new album. And I'm like, who's Lil Yachty? And I have no idea what's going on. And I just look and nod and say, yes, have some more Krispy Kremes, right? Like, I don't know what to do. So I'm experiencing that disconnect as well. But I'll tell you something that's amazing. Dr. Susie mentioned a couple of really awesome points, like picking up on the language, understanding what they're saying. But I'll tell you something that's really, really going to empower everybody in this room. You know what connects people better than language? You know what will connect you with your children better than the ability to say, wow, mashallah, daughter, your hijab is on fleek today, right? Or son, mashallah, your beard is lit, right? Instead of saying those things to connect to your children, you know what connects universally, across time, across place, doesn't matter where you live, what you are? Smiling. When you smile at your children. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was described by many companions, but in particular the young ones, as we never saw him except that he was smiling.